Have you ever tried counseling with Kody and Robyn? No, I just don't like them. And honestly, thinking about all of it, it's easier to just move on, let go, and finally release myself. I remember those first couple of years I didn't even want to think about it. Now I ask myself, what do I need to do to truly put this behind me completely? I need to make sure every single piece is in place. Music builds high, besties. Welcome back. Today, Janelle Brown is on a mission of high stakes. Almost impossible mission to get herself released from Kody Brown. But here's the kicker, she's seeking this release from the very leaders of the Church of the Apostolic United Brethren, the same prophet who is currently being sued by his ex-spiritual wife, who claims she's been fighting for her release for decades. Yes, Janelle is about to be spiritually freed by a man who refuses to free his own wife. And at the same time, Kody is preparing to re-enter her life. Her daughter, Maddie, warns her maybe Kody is only coming back to stir chaos. And make no mistake, Kody has perfected the art of impeccable timing. For years, he's been finding ways to pull her back in. Today, Kody claims he's done with polygamy, totally never again. Yet here he is, apologizing to all his wives, even though they were already free. Why? Some say it's control, ego, damage limitation, or maybe even to salvage his marriage with Robyn. But for Janelle, it's deeper. She's ready for spiritual release, a severing of a bond that has haunted her for years. Her journey began with her family's concern. Her mother tried to save her from a polygamous life, fearing for her safety. But by the time Janelle made her choices, she was already on a path fraught with danger. Back in 1988, she joined Adam Barber, stepping into a world riddled with violence, cult wars, and polygamous sex. The history of the AUB is soaked in blood and betrayal, prophets assassinated, followers killed, doctrines demanding absolute loyalty even through violence. Janelle's community wasn't immune. Followers of Ervil LeBaron executed blood atonement killings, eliminating anyone deemed unworthy. Abuse, manipulation, coercion, it was everywhere. And Janelle? She was right in the middle of it. Despite the danger, she remained committed, clinging to her faith. She believed she was on the righteous path, ignoring red flags even as abuse unfolded around her. But the cracks began to show, and slowly, she started thinking about leaving. The spiritual release wasn't symbolic, it was essential. It severed the eternal covenant she made in the EUB temple. Without it, she could still be bound to Kody, not just in life, but forever in the afterlife. This was critical. Janelle didn't want to risk being trapped in heaven with Kody. And here's the twist. The prophet granting her release, Dave Watson, is embroiled in scandal. He's being sued by his own wife, accused of hoarding property, abusing spouses, and refusing her release. And yet, Janelle walks away with freedom from a man arguably worse than Kody. The indoctrination of the AUB is thick, manipulative, and coercive. Women are promised eternal salvation, godhood, ultimate righteousness, but at the cost of their freedom. Giving that up takes courage. And Janelle found it. Now she has the release, the freedom, the chance to move on. Let's hope she stays away, settles in North Carolina, and finally starts living life on her own terms, far from cults, prophets, and men who believe they own souls. What do you think about Janelle's journey? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching, besties. Have you ever tried counseling with Kody and Robyn? No, I just don't like them. It's that simple. And thinking about all of it, honestly, it's easier to just move on, let go, and finally release myself from the past. I remember those first couple of years I didn't even want to think about it. Every memory felt heavy, every thought exhausting. But now, I ask myself, what do I need to do to truly put this behind me completely? I need to make sure every little piece is in place, every tie severed. Music swells high, besties. Welcome back. Today, we're following Janelle Brown on a mission of high stakes. Almost impossible mission to get herself released from Kody Brown. But here's the twist. She's seeking release from the very leaders of the Church of the Apostolic United Brethren, the same prophet currently being sued by his ex-spiritual wife, who claims she's been trying for decades to obtain her own release. Yes, Janelle is about to be spiritually freed by a man who refuses to free his own wife. Meanwhile, Kody is preparing to re-enter her life. Her daughter, Maddie, warns her maybe Kody is only showing up to stir chaos. And make no mistake, Kody has perfected the art of impeccable timing. For years, he's been finding ways to pull her back in, to reclaim the hold he's never truly lost. Today, Kody says he's done with polygamy, totally never again. Yet here he is, apologizing to all his wives, even those who are already free. Why is it control, ego, drama, or perhaps an attempt to salvage his marriage with Robyn? But for Janelle, this isn't about Kody. It's deeper. It's about spiritual release, a severing of a bond that has haunted her for years. Janelle's journey wasn't easy. Her family tried to intervene, her mother desperate to save her from a polygamous life, fearing for her daughter's safety. But Janelle had already stepped onto a path filled with danger, mystery, and secrecy. Back in 1988, she joined Adam Barber, diving headfirst into a world rife with polygamous sect conflicts. The history of the AUB is soaked in blood, betrayal, and power struggles. Prophets were assassinated, followers were murdered, and doctrines demanded absolute loyalty even when it meant violence. Janelle's community was no exception. Followers of Ervil LeBaron executed blood atonement killings, targeting anyone deemed unworthy. Entire families were caught in the crossfire. Abuse, manipulation, and coercion were constant. And Janelle? She found herself trapped in a system designed to control every part of her life. Despite the danger, she held on to her faith. She believed she was on the righteous path, ignoring red flags even as abuse unfolded around her. She was idealistic, convinced the community's promises of salvation were true. But the cracks began to appear, and slowly, Janelle started to question. It was a place where obedience was demanded and freedom was a dangerous luxury, where betrayal could cost you your safety or your life. And for Janelle, the cost of leaving wasn't just social, it was spiritual. The covenant she made in the EUB temple connected her to Kody not just for this life, but for eternity. Without a spiritual release, she could still be bound to him forever. Finally, the moment Janelle had been preparing for arrived, the spiritual release. But here's the twist: the prophet granting her freedom, Dave Watson, is himself embroiled in scandal. He's being sued by his own wife, who claims he refuses to release her, hoards property, and abuses his spouses. So, Janelle is about to gain her freedom from a man who has arguably done worse than Kody. The irony is almost cinematic. She's stepping out of one controlling relationship only to confront the shadow of another. The indoctrination within the AUB is thick, manipulative, and relentless. Women are promised eternal salvation, godhood, ultimate righteousness, but only if they obey. Giving that up requires immense courage. And Janelle finally found hers. The spiritual release wasn't symbolic, it severed the eternal covenant she made in the EUB temple. Without it, she could still be bound to Kody, not just in life, but in the afterlife. This was critical. Janelle didn't want to risk being trapped in heaven with Kody forever. Now, she has the release, the freedom, the power to finally move on. After years of manipulation, fear, and coercion, Janelle steps into her own life away from cults, controlling men, and a faith that had held her captive for far too long. Let's hope she stays out, settles in North Carolina, and truly begins living life on her own terms. The journey was harrowing. The stakes were high, but Janelle has finally taken control of her destiny. With the spiritual release finally complete, Janelle takes a deep breath, a weight lifted. A chapter closed. But this isn't just about one woman breaking free. It's about the lessons hidden in years of manipulation, control, and indoctrination. Her journey reminds us how powerful faith can be, but also how dangerous when twisted by those who crave power. The promises of salvation, righteousness, and eternal rewards can trap even the strongest, if the system is built to control and coerce. For Janelle, freedom wasn't handed to her, it was earned. Every decision, every step away from Kody, every confrontation with the harsh realities of the AUB brought her closer to reclaiming her life. And the irony remains, she was released by a man who refused to release his own wife. Yet, in that paradox, she found liberation. Now, she has a chance to truly live life on her own terms, away from cults, controlling men, and manipulative power structures. North Carolina is waiting, and with it, the opportunity for peace, autonomy, and new beginnings. What can we take from Janelle's story? Courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination to act despite it. Freedom is not given. It is claimed. And sometimes the chains holding us back are invisible, spiritual, emotional, or societal, and breaking them takes every ounce of strength. What do you think about Janelle's journey? Could you imagine standing up to such a system? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Her story is a warning, a lesson, and a testament to the power of reclaiming your own destiny. The air was heavy with tension, almost tangible, as Janelle Brown prepared herself for the culmination of a journey that had spanned decades. Every step she had taken, every obstacle she had faced, and every painful memory of Kody Brown and the Apostolic United Brethren had led to this very moment. This wasn't just another routine act in the life of a reality TV star. This was a deeply personal, spiritual confrontation with a past that had refused to let her go. For years, Janelle had carried the weight of a covenant she had entered into willingly, but one that had ensnared her in ways that went far beyond legalities. The temple of the EUB was not just a building, it was a system, a network of rituals and doctrines that bound her not only to Kody in life but according to their beliefs, for all eternity. Every glance, every conversation, and every forced compromise over the years had reinforced a silent truth. Freedom was not something she had been given. It was something she had to fight for mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The irony of her situation was almost cruelly cinematic. She was seeking release from a prophet, Dave Watson, a man whose own record of manipulation, abuse, and refusal to release his wives was well documented. Janelle was about to be freed from Kody Brown by someone who had done far worse than Kody himself. It was a paradox, a striking contradiction that could only exist in the labyrinthine world of polygamous cults, where morality, power, and faith often collided in unpredictable and dangerous ways. As Janelle approached the office where the formalities would be conducted, she could feel the weight of history pressing down on her. The OB had a long, violent, and complex history. Followers of Orville LeBaron, a radical leader who believed in blood atonement, had executed scores of people to cleanse sins they thought could not be absolved by any other means. These acts weren't distant stories. They were the DNA of the institution she was trying to leave. Knowing she was stepping into this environment, Janelle's mind couldn't help but race with every cautionary tale she had been told over the years. Former members who disappeared, families torn apart, and lives destroyed under the guise of divine justice. Yet, amidst all this, Janelle had reached a point of clarity. She no longer had illusions about Kody's motives, nor the manipulations embedded in the AUB's doctrines. She knew that every apology Kody offered, every attempt to reinsert himself into her life, was less about love or reconciliation and more about control, ego, and narrative management. But understanding this didn't erase the past. It only sharpened the necessity for release. This wasn't just about a symbolic gesture, it was about survival, liberation, and reclaiming her own life. The ceremony itself, though brief, carried a gravity that was impossible to ignore. Dave Watson, the prophet whose contradictions were as glaring as the sun, presided over the ritual. For a moment, the absurdity of it all struck Janelle. She was gaining freedom from a man who, by all accounts, was incapable of granting such freedom to his own wife. Yet she allowed herself to focus on the tangible outcome, the spiritual severing that would finally, irrevocably, cut the chains binding her to Kody. As the words were spoken, as the ritual concluded, Janelle felt a shift, subtle but undeniable. There was a lightness, a release that no apology, no conversation, and no legal document had ever given her. The covenant that had loomed over her life, dictating not only her actions but her very sense of possibility and autonomy, had been dissolved. The chains were gone, replaced with a clarity and power that only comes from reclaiming one's own agency. Yet the psychological and emotional layers of this journey were far from simple. For decades, Janelle had been navigating an environment that manipulated faith, morality, and fear in ways that were almost surgical. The AUB promised ultimate salvation, godhood, and righteousness, but only for those who adhered to their strict, coercive rules. To walk away meant not just rejecting Kody, but rejecting the worldview she had been raised to believe in, a worldview that had defined her purpose, identity, and moral compass. It was here, in this intersection of faith and personal liberation, that the true stakes revealed themselves. Janelle's freedom was not merely an escape from Kody Brown. It was a confrontation with decades of indoctrination. Every fear, every manipulated guilt, every false promise of spiritual doom had to be confronted, dissected, and ultimately discarded. She was not just leaving a person. She was leaving an entire system of belief that had sought to define her reality. In the days following the release, the irony of the situation lingered. Dave Watson, the very man granting her freedom, continued to hold other wives captive in spiritual and emotional terms, refusing to release them from covenants that bound them as tightly as Kody had bound Janelle. The contrast was stark, almost cinematic in its cruelty. And yet, for Janelle, the outcome was absolute. She had reclaimed her life, her freedom, and her ability to define her own path. Her reflections on this journey reveal a profound truth about courage, resilience, and agency. Freedom, she realized, is not something that can be handed to you, it must be claimed. Often in the face of immense opposition, danger, and manipulation. It is not merely a legal or procedural matter, but a spiritual and emotional act of defiance. Every decision to move forward, every step away from control, was an assertion of selfhood in a world that had systematically tried to deny it. And what of Kody? Of the doctrines that had ensnared her for so long? In confronting these forces, Janelle did not just seek to sever ties. She sought to understand them, to see the machinery behind the manipulation, and to emerge not just free, but enlightened. The process was messy, painful, and fraught with irony, but it was necessary. The final lesson of her journey is clear. Liberation is not a single moment, but a continuous process. Even after the ritual, even after the official release, Janelle must navigate the psychological remnants of decades spent under coercive control. She must confront the habits, fears, and conditioned loyalties that do not vanish with a ceremony. And yet, the difference now is profound. She faces these challenges on her own terms with agency, clarity, and self-determination. Janelle's story is both cautionary and inspirational. It exposes the hidden dangers of systems that exploit faith, manipulate morality, and coerce obedience, while also illuminating the remarkable resilience of a person willing to confront them. Her journey underscores the complexity of spiritual liberation, especially when entangled with love, loyalty, and deeply ingrained belief systems. For viewers, the narrative offers a dual lesson: the importance of vigilance against coercive influence, and the power of agency when reclaiming one's life. It reminds us that the chains that bind are not always visible, and that the act of breaking free requires courage, clarity, and relentless determination. As Janelle steps into the next chapter of her life away from Kody, away from the manipulations of the AUB, and toward the possibilities of autonomy and peace, she embodies a truth that resonates beyond her personal story: that freedom, once claimed, is the ultimate act of self-respect and survival. It is not simply an escape from the past. It is the deliberate crafting of a future on one's own terms. Her journey, fraught with danger, irony, and emotional complexity, concludes with a powerful testament: liberation is hard, but it is possible. The cost of remaining bound spiritually, emotionally, and psychologically can be immense. And the reward for breaking free is not just survival, but the reclamation of life itself. In the end, Janelle Brown's story is more than a reality TV saga. It is a deep, human narrative about courage, the struggle for autonomy, and the relentless pursuit of freedom in the face of entrenched systems of control. Her release, though completed in a ceremony, represents decades of courage, reflection, and resilience.